Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Well, how about that? The Utah Hockey Club is moving up from 14th in the draft to 4th. That's the most the leagues allow. They drafted they were so lucky in the lottery they could have moved to 2nd, but you can't move 12 spots. So I guess that late season run for the playoff actually hurt them because if they hadn't won so many games, maybe they would have had the 12th worst record instead of the 14th record, and they could have drafted 2nd instead of 4th. But you know what? It's such a positive day. You don't have to worry about that. Bill Armstrong just has to figure out who's the best player to draft at number 4, and away they go. We'll hear from Bill Armstrong coming up. But first, a little playoff hockey. What a wild weekend. Late in yesterday's show, we talked with Matt Larkin. He covers the NHL for the Daily Faceoff, and PK and I spent a little time talking hockey with him right here on The Zone. Matt, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. How you doing?
Good. I mean, not as good as the Jets, but much better than the Blues, if you get my drift.
Oh, my goodness. Talk about an instant classic. And after the bar was set pretty high the night before with Dallas coming back in Game 7, who knew it would be topped 24 hours later?
Have you got anything in NHL history like that? 2 goals, last 2 minutes. There was a miracle on Manchester. The Kings scored 6 goals, and I don't know what the time span was, though, to come back and win. I mean, these things happen, but 2 goals in 2 minutes and 1 in the last couple of seconds and then double overtime. Can't be many like that.
Yeah, pretty unprecedented. Miracle in Manchester is one. We had the Toronto Maple Leafs in 2013, blew a 4-1 lead with about 11 minutes left in the third period, lost that game in overtime. So that was a 3-goal race in a Game 7. But in terms of the short window of time, it's the latest goal ever, latest tying goal ever in a Game 7. It was, 1.6 seconds, I believe? Cole Perfetti? Unbelievable.
And if that did not happen, given the 2 most recent disappointments by Winnipeg the last couple of years going out in short series, would there have been jobs lost, do you think?
That's a really interesting question. And it's funny, with 2 seconds left in the game, I was thinking about that. It's crazy how quickly things can change because the Jets are in a tough spot. They have a lot of their veteran talent locked up for a long time and sort of nearing the end of their prime years, guys like Mark Scheifele and, of course, Josh Morrissey, Connor Hellebuck in net. But then you had Nikolai Ehlers, who's going to be a free agent. You had Kyle Connor, who's entering the final year of his deal. So I think there would be a lot of questions about the future of the Jets. And you've had Kevin Cheveldayoff, who's been there the whole time as the GM. And more often than not, they've been successful, but they've only really made one deep run during that time, which was a trip to the conference final in 2018. So I do think there's a lot of pressure on this team, especially after winning the President's Trophy. And there's particularly, of course, pressure on Connor Hellebuck. And it's crazy how the narrative can change. All throughout the game last night, people are trying to find the comparison. Is he hockey's version of James Harden? Is he Clayton Kershaw? What do you compare him to? Someone who's at the top of his craft. He's going to win the Vezina Trophy for a 3rd time this year. He might even win the league MVP this year and just completely imploding in the playoffs. But you can change the narrative in a hurry. And I think everybody would agree he was excellent in the overtime. He was really aggressive coming out of his net, and he showed confidence he didn't have at the start of the game. So who knows? Maybe he flicks the switch. And if Hellebuck plays like even 85% of his normal self, it really changes the trajectory of the Jets for the rest of the playoffs.
So are Avalanche fans there sitting there thinking, why? 9.5 years with the club. And, okay, if you're going to trade him to the East, and then 13 games later, Randon's moved back to Dallas, and then a hat trick and an assist and a 4-2 win in Game 7. That just, talk about a boomerang.
Oh, my goodness. It's one of the all-time boomerangs in terms of how quickly the consequences were felt. And I think the fact that supposedly the 2 sides were haggling over a pretty small amount of money is something that could really haunt the Avalanche franchise for years to come, because this is one of their all-time best players. Mikko Rantanen is going to be a Hall of Famer. And even before these playoffs, he already ranked among the best playoff performers of all time. He had over 100 points in 82, 83 games, career games in the playoffs, Stanley Cup winner. So it really shouldn't be that big of a surprise to see him doing so well. He's had a weird year, struggling a little bit in Carolina, not himself in Dallas. But if you look at the bigger sample size, his entire career, he's been mostly an elite player. And I think he really made a statement in that series showing that, he was not hanging on to the coattails of Nathan McKinnon. He's an elite player in his own right. And it's a tough one for Colorado because they had an unbelievable amount of roster turnover. They turned over, I believe it was more than 50% of their roster within the season. So it's rarely been done successfully. I think the only team to do it was the 1991 Pittsburgh Penguins in terms of making that many moves in the middle of a season. But it's tough because it's an indictment of the playoff format. For all the Avalanche know, if Dallas goes all the way and wins the Cup, maybe Colorado was the second best team in the playoffs, but they just happened to draw the best team in that round one matchup. So that's sort of the cruelty of this format. Colorado, I actually had them going all the way winning the Cup. They were my pick, but here we are. They're out in round one.
The way Colorado has built themselves and the Avs have done what they've done to go from being crummy, 7-8 years ago and winning the Cup in 2022, become a model by building through the draft and then add a couple of key players to help them. Do you see similarities in what they have done to what the Utah Hockey Club can do or is in the process of doing?
I see some. I don't think it's a perfect comparison because I don't think Utah was bad enough. So what you have with Colorado, they finished at the very bottom. So Nathan McKinnon was a first overall pick. Gabriel Landeskog was a second overall pick. You got Cale Makar fourth overall, right? So Utah, I don't think has that guaranteed superstar trajectory player. Clayton Keller obviously had a tremendous season. He's a great talent. And you have some really exciting prospects coming, guys like TJ Ginla. But in terms of getting Montreal getting Ivan Demidov, someone like that, whose trajectory is to be a superstar, Matt Mitchkov in Philadelphia, I don't think Utah has that great of player in their system. So I don't think Utah has followed the exact tanking model because they've been trying now, I think, for a couple years under Bill Armstrong to be competitive. They do have a tremendous crop of young talent that they've assembled over the past several drafts. And as we saw last year with the trades they made at the draft, they are positioned to start moving some young assets to try and get better. But I don't quite see the exact comparison just because of the fact that Utah doesn't have the megastar guaranteed generational superstar.
Bill Armstrong is talking about everybody needs to get 10% better in the offseason, and certainly we get that sentiment, and certainly with the players who are 20, 21, like Cooley and Gunther, you expect improvement. Keller having just turned in a 90-point season, turning 27 here. Can he get 10% better? Or 90 points is, he's 11th in the league in points. Are we going to look back and that was his peak year? Maybe he has several years at that peak, but how much better is he going to get?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're looking at several years at this peak, and I think it's more up to everyone else to pick up the slack. I think we have Clayton Keller now reaching his peak level, really dynamic offensive player. But Logan Cooley is someone whose ceiling and his style of play is pretty similar to Keller. And you saw him jump up to 65 points in 75 games. Cooley has the ceiling to be that type of player who challenges for 100 points. Dylan Guenther, I thought, had a great year when he was healthy and just got a big body, a natural goal scorer. I think there's room for him to be a 35, 40 goal guy as well. The other thing for Utah is just simply having better injury luck could make up another 5 wins, right? Because 2 of your top defensemen, John Marino, Sean Durzi, missed more than half the season. So that alone, if you can get those guys playing 75 or more games next year, that's going to advance things for sure.
Do you think they have specific needs in the draft? Or I like what Armstrong said early in the season, we'll just draft best player available, and if we have to make moves down the line, so be it. But do you see specific needs that maybe they should target?
Well, we know that this team is never hurting for size. Like, they've really added a lot of big, strong, tough players in the draft in recent years. So Bill Armstrong, he's a big guy himself, and it seems like that's his preference. But I think in taking again the last year, that was a step in the right direction. I know you have Cooley, but I do think that Utah needs to add a little bit more high-end skill. Because you look at a guy, let's say, like Cole Bedoin, who they took in the first round last year as well. He's someone who's a lunch pail player, possibly a future captain, someone who's going to be a heart and soul leader. I think they've got a lot of that in their system now, but I think they need to add a little bit more high-end skill because, like you said, Clayton Keller, he might be nearing the end of his peak in the next few years, so you're going to need someone else alongside Cooley to be your higher ceiling guy who can be a marquee scorer for years to come.
Sergachev averaged 25 minutes a game on the ice, and 15 goals, 38 assists as a defenseman. He just did so many things for them. Did you know when that trade was made he was going to have that kind of impact? Can he continue to produce at that level, or is that just so much time on the ice? Only Superman wouldn't get worn down by that. What are your expectations for him?
I think he can maintain this level. If you look at him tracing back to when he was first drafted by Montreal and then traded to Tampa Bay in the Jonathan Drouin deal, this was always his ceiling. He was supposed to be a mega minute muncher, kind of like a Victor Hedman, right? In Tampa Bay, big guy. He's mobile. He can play physical. He can do a little bit of everything, really just a well-rounded player. And that's the type of profile to me that's built to be a minute muncher in the NHL. So I suspected he was going to get a massive role in Utah and sort of, in a way, being out from under Victor Hedman's shadow and given a chance to play a much bigger role. So I think he was always capable of it. I think he's capable of maintaining it, and I think he'll be among the league leaders in ice time again next year, and I think he'll still be a pretty dynamic offensive player too. So I think this version of Sergachev, I don't think it was just overreaching career year. I think this is what he can be as a peak player for the next several years.
Handicap Jets stars, so many parallels there. And even at the end, both had two defensemen go out at where they couldn't play with injuries. So I'm wondering what you see going forward.
Yeah, it's interesting. We do have Winnipeg winning the series without Mark Scheifele, their top forward, or one of their top two forwards, and then losing Josh Morrissey in the middle of the game. But on the other hand, they barely got by St. Louis, and they were the President's Trophy winner playing the 8th seed. Dallas, they had the entire series without Jason Robertson, their top offensive forward, the entire series without their top defenseman, Miro Heiskanen, and they still beat a better team in Colorado. So I think everything tilts Dallas's way. I think the Jets just look too volatile, and I think Dallas is probably the deepest team in the entire NHL, top to bottom, at least at forward. They can beat you in so many ways. They have so many different lines that can beat you. They also have a great goaltender in Jake Ottinger, who's been much more reliable in the playoffs than Connor Hellebuck. So I definitely lean Dallas's way in this series. I have them winning it in 6.
Well, Matt, we appreciate the time. Thanks for talking a little hockey, talking a little Utah Hockey Club. Are you expecting the Mammoth? We're all expecting the Mammoth here.
Yeah, you guys probably know better than me, but that's what I'm hearing. It sounds like the Mammoth is going to happen.
We appreciate it, Mark. Matt, we will talk to you again. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys.
There is Matt Larkin from Daily Faceoff. And coming up later in this show, we're going to talk more hockey at 7:30. Stephen Ellis, who covers the NHL draft and prospects for the Daily Faceoff, is going to join us now that we know that Utah's drafting 4th and see who he thinks they might be able to get. Is there any chance they move up? Is there any advantage to moving back? We know all the things that can be done during a draft. We'll talk with him about that. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Jazz head coach Will Hardy gets a contract extension. He signed up for 6 more years. After 3 years on the job, he's now guaranteed employment. Well, he's guaranteed a check anyway, through 2031. We'll hear from him next, and then Bill Armstrong, his press conference after the hockey club finds out they're drafting 4th. That's all on the way. Stay with us. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Well, Danny Ainge likes to hire coaches and then stick with them. That's why Doc Rivers did 9 years in Boston, and that's why his successor did 8 years for the Celtics as the head coach before moving up into the front office to replace Danny Ainge when he left and came to Utah. So, no surprise that Will Hardy got a contract extension. They've been way short on talent. The losses certainly aren't on him. Hardy gets a contract extension and meets with the media. Here he is.
Hey, Will. Just want to ask from your perspective, how this unfolds to go, how the contract negotiations unfold, who represents you, and kind of how those conversations happen.
Yeah, I have an agent like most or all coaches. Ryan, Danny, and Justin are the ones that communicate with them, Justin being the primary communicator. These are conversations that happen over a period of time. It's not a one-day thing. And, so they'd speak about, the kind of the aim of the program and what their thoughts are. I'm fortunate that I work for this group. I think Ryan, Ashley, Danny, Justin have been incredibly good to me from the first day. We've been very aligned the entire way through this process. And so calling it a negotiation, that word sometimes draws up this thought in your mind like it's a contentious thing back and forth, and it's not. I'm very proud to be the coach of the Utah Jazz. So this is something that everybody was really excited about.
Ryan Miller.
Hey, Will. 6 years is a long time. It'll be what, like 9 years when this thing's all done. How much does that help you just as you're like looking forward to long-term fans' future to be like, okay, I will be here. This is my job for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately a big sigh of relief for any coach. We all see every day that this business is not, it's not one where you see a ton of coaches getting long-term commitments. I think ultimately the goal is to continue to build this program and ultimately hang a banner at Delta Center. And to get a commitment of that length shows the belief that our group has in our coaching staff. And so it makes you feel the confidence from them. That's not something that I've ever doubted. I think the communication that we've had the entire first 3 years, I've felt that I have the confidence of our group, but to get that, quote unquote, put on paper is definitely meaningful. I'm all in on the Utah Jazz. I'm incredibly humbled and grateful to have this opportunity. There are very few moments where I'm really at a loss for words, and this is one of those where the perspective on all of it, the understanding of the commitment that they're making to me and to our staff is really humbling. And we're excited to continue to work. I love representing this organization. I love representing our community and our fan base. So it's a really exciting day.
Jeff Rainier.
Yeah, Coach, you have a real close connection with the guys you mentioned, Ryan, Danny, Justin, and yourself. You guys hang out together, play golf together. How important is that to you to have that connection with those guys? I don't know if that exists in a lot of other NBA coaching positions.
Yeah, I think it's what sets us apart is the alignment that we have every day. It's one constant conversation. I think I've said publicly, I'm not sure in 3 years we've ever scheduled a meeting because we don't need to. The conversation is ongoing. We all spend so much time together and are intentional about making sure we all spend time together that the perspective is always there for all four of us. I understand the things that they're thinking about, the things that they're worried about, the things that they may be focused on in the current moment, and they understand the things that I'm worried about and focused on. So I think that connection allows us to navigate what is a hard landscape in professional sports. It's very much a business that is judged and reacted to in sort of an A or F manner. It's either great or it's terrible. And I think that it allows us to really block out all of that noise and stay focused on, the intent of our group and why we're doing what we're doing. I couldn't be luckier to have three people like that I get to work with every day because, like you said, it's not lost on me that this is not normal.
Tony Jones.
Hey, Coach. What does it mean for you that, this is, been able to get done, in this manner, just kind of as efficiently as it has been done. And, as a secondary question, what's been, some of your favorite moments in these first few years of your tenure?
Yeah, it means a lot to get this done and sort of put this part behind us. There's so much work to be done. We have, a lot that we have to do as a staff. and as an organization moving forward to get where we want to get to. And so to have this element solidified in the moment is definitely relieving and allows us to focus on the things that we need to focus on. I mean, memories of the first 3 years that's a hard one to pinpoint, because I go back to, the first press conference when I got the job and meeting all of you for the first time and sort of starting to initially feel the weight and responsibility of this job, but also feel the passion and the support of our fan base. The first home game at Delta Center was a moment that I'll never forget. Little things like the first time the team brought it in at the end of practice and training camp, and you realize, like, wait, I'm the head coach. I'm the one that's supposed to talk right now. But also more than that, it's the time spent with everybody that's in our travel party. There's so much time behind the scenes on the planes, on the buses. There's so many people who do incredible work for us who get no credit publicly, and forging those relationships along with the relationships with our players. It's a day like today when the news comes out and you're getting texts from guys that were on the team my first year here. I was a 34-year-old first-time head coach, and they let me coach them, and they embraced me as the head coach, and they were ultimately the ones that fed into my confidence in this job because of the way that they approached me every day. The games are always fun, but ultimately I think that this job and coaching in general, it's the relationships and the time spent are the things that run through your head when you really look back on it all. And so I'm very, very grateful that I've been surrounded by and am still surrounded by so many amazing people.
Or Todd.
Hey, Will, the first extension kind of, gave a glimpse that you would be here kind of through that first rebuilding part of the rebuild or first section of the rebuild of this team. And this extension gives you an opportunity to kind of look beyond what would be the rebuild and start sort of what it would look like when you guys are maybe trying for contention. And I'm wondering, what are your worries, concerns, thoughts about how maybe your job will change once it shifts?
Yeah, it's not something that I'm concerned about. I think that's what we all want. You want to be in the big game. You want to be in the pressure situation. You want to be competing for the championship. That's what we're all hunting. And I do recognize that there will be a lot of changes for all of us as our team continues to grow. It's not just me. It's the assistant coaches. It's the players. It's the front office. It's Ryan and Ashley. Like, the feelings and the emotions attached to it all will be a little bit different. And I'm excited for that. Like, I'm excited for our fan base to pack the building for a big playoff game. I think that's what we're all anxious for and excited for. Like, I watch these playoff games at night and you're just staring at the screen going, that's what I want. And that's what we're building towards. Like, we're a group that's very committed to the process of building a championship level team. And we said in the beginning, and we will continue to say, that does not mean that there aren't hard moments. But I think that those hard moments are ultimately what makes it all worth it in the end. So I don't really have concerns about my job changing as we continue to move forward, because I think that's ultimately what you sign up for when you're a head coach in this league is things are constantly changing around you, and you have to be a steady force throughout all that change.
Andy.
Two questions for you. First, with the NBA lottery, are you headed out to Chicago for that, or what's your plan with that?
Yes, I will be in Chicago.
Okay. And then wanted to ask, as you watch playoff basketball, and we've talked about this before, it's a different style of basketball than regular season basketball. How do you think your current team and young players especially are equipped to kind of handle what we've seen in some really tough and close playoff games so far?
Yeah, I think our young players are on the right path of growing towards being ready for those. The reality is this season we weren't ready for that level. And some of that is outside of their control, because there is an element of some experience, but also some physical maturity and some of those things that stand out in some of these games. We're seeing a really, really physical playoffs to this point. But the part that I'm most excited about is that ultimately, in my experience in the playoffs, and continuing to watch it all unfold, your mental toughness and your mindset is the most important thing to get through the playoffs, because there are big emotional swings. You're physically exhausted and you're getting tested every single night. And I think that our group is building that resilience and continuing to improve and work on our mindset every single day, because that's what it's going to take. If you watch the series after one game, the reactions are generally this team is playing great, this other team is playing poorly. Golden State loses 2 games in a row and everybody's sort of writing them off, and they go win game 7 on the road. And yes, it's because of the ability of their players, but more than that, it seems like it's because of the mindset of their players. And that's the thing that we have to continue to address as a group as we grow. Physical things are easier to measure. How strong you are, how high you can jump, how many shots you make out of a certain number, like those things are easy to measure. Your mindset's hard to measure. And so that's the thing we have to monitor really closely as a group as we keep going.
Yeah, you mentioned wins were hard to come by this season, but man, the fans, every time I went to a game, they're packing the arena, which surprised me. Every time I showed up, that many people were there to watch. What do you want to say to them about how they've supported you, maybe where you are in this process?
Yeah, my message to our fan base first and foremost is thank you. Their support means the world to me. It means the world to our team, because we need them. And ultimately, we're trying to conduct ourselves in a way that represents them. And you always want your fan base to be proud of how you're operating as a team. And I think that ultimately that's why they showed up every night. I give our fan base a lot of credit. They have perspective and they understand what we're ultimately hunting, and they understand what we're doing to try to get there. And playing a lot of young players, trying to develop our young talent, the fan base understood that that was going to be hard from a wins and losses standpoint at certain moments. But I do think that they continued to show up because they enjoyed watching our young players compete. There was not a lack of effort on the floor. There was not a lack of passion wearing a Utah Jazz jersey, and that's why they continue to show up. So, sorry. I want to continue to thank them and to continue to tell them and remind them that this is all going to be worth it. And growing these young players is going to give us the best chance to hang a banner at Delta Center. And I understand frustration in certain moments. I understand that some of the losses are hard, and especially when you cared so deeply about the team. But their support does not go unnoticed. I'm very grateful for our fan base and their approach, and this is all going to be worth it.
Sarah?
Will, as the season was ending, I asked pretty much on everyone on the roster, like, is Will a good coach? And how does he keep you guys accountable? And like the general consensus was great coach. Everyone said glowing things about you, so that's nice. But the thing that stood out was that everyone was like, well, he'll call Lowry out in a film session or during a practice or during a game just as soon as he'll call out a two-way guy or Cody or Isaiah. And so that even playing field, is that a concerted effort kind of in your coaching philosophy and something that you want to continue?
Yeah, that's going to remain a core principle for us every single day. And that's because I believe ultimately everybody can improve. And secondly, we all want the same thing. We're all trying to win. My responsibility is to hold them accountable. It's not personal. I care very much about all of these guys as human beings. But when we're doing the basketball piece, we're trying to improve as a team. They're trying to improve individually. And it's also a credit to our veteran players, like you mentioned, Lowry, and he allows me to coach him hard in front of the team because he understands that allowing me to do that lets me coach the young players hard and not have them bat an eye. And we don't get into this situation of, well, you don't yell at him when he did this, he did this on that play and you didn't say anything. We want everybody to be held accountable to the same standards. And that's something that, I was fortunate to witness, up close and personal throughout my coaching career, the coaches that I've worked for. And I ultimately think it's the best way to build team cohesion is everybody understanding that the standards have to be the same for everybody. And just because you're on a different contract or you play more minutes doesn't mean that you get to just let things slide. And I want them to continue to want more for themselves. That's my responsibility. And if that means that in certain moments they're all mad at me, that's fine. That comes with the territory, and there's that can be good for a group as well. But our players deserve a lot of credit for how they've handled themselves. I'm very grateful that they allow me to coach them as hard as I do.
Sarah, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah. You mentioned having seen the coaches that you've worked for and learning from them, and kind of as the news recently that Pop won't be coming back like to a coaching bench. I'm wondering how much of your coaching style philosophy was learned through him, and is he someone that you think about or talk to when, you get a big contract extension?
Yeah, I learned an incredible amount from Pop. I think he really set the foundation of values for me that you carry into your team. I also recognize that I'm not Pop and our personalities are not the same. And so I'm not trying to emulate Pop. I do think that the values system, though, is similar. That being said, he's taught me more than I could even explain, allowing me to be a part of his program and their program for 11 years, the opportunities that I was given there, getting to learn from him, getting to learn from the players, getting to learn from, countless assistant coaches that I got to work with and for while I was there, has ultimately shaped a ton of my coaching identity. But I do have to remain true to myself and do it my way and with my voice. So I'm forever grateful to him, that organization and all the coaches and players that I was around while I was there. There's way too many to name each of them by name right now. And yeah, of course, he's somebody that, I speak to. He's a mentor to me in a lot of ways. He's been a very prominent figure in my adult life. I was in San Antonio from age 22 to 33, which is a very formative part of my life. And so, yeah, getting to share the news with him is, that's a great moment. There's, other coaches as well that you get to share the news with, and you get congratulatory texts. It's one of the few moments where you take a moment and take a step back and think about the journey to this point and all the people that have been very impactful along the way. Pop obviously being the most prominent.
There's Will Hardy at his press conference. Don't miss your chance to win big every week on The Zone. This week on Win Ticket Wednesday, you could win tickets to Eric Church and the Free the Machine Tour, October 23rd at the Delta Center. Find your tickets on SeatGeek starting on Friday, May 9th at 10 o'clock with a special pre-sale starting on Tuesday. Listen to The Zone all day Wednesday for your chance to win. When we come back, Bill Armstrong talking about moving up to the 4th spot in the draft. Stay with us. Good morning. TJ and PK is proudly presented by our title sponsor, Black Desert Resort, Utah's premier golf resort. Bill Armstrong holding a press conference and media availability after the NHL draft lottery where Utah moves up. They had the 14th worst record, but they are going to draft 4th, and they only allow you to move up 10 spots. So that was as good as that draft lottery could have gone for Utah, who's not going to pick 4th in the upcoming NHL draft. Here's the general manager, Bill Armstrong, at his press conference.
Hey, Bill, congratulations on moving up to 4th overall. Can you touch on the excitement that the organization has to get that draft pick and also some of the talent that you're expecting to be available at 4th overall?
Yeah, I think someone's got needs to put the mute on, but it's to pick at 4. I mean, like we were just a couple seconds ago, we were just like 10 back. So it's like it still hasn't sunk in, but what a great opportunity for us to be able to move up that far in the draft, and now we're right up at the top of the draft, and this is an exciting moment for us. It's a game changer for us. So I can't wait to huddle with the scouts tomorrow and go over it and kind of see. Obviously we'd been studying the players that were available to us where we thought they'd fall. Now we're gonna obviously leap up a little bit, and it's going to be exciting times. But just great stuff for the franchise. I can't express in words on the excitement of when that happened and the opportunity in front of us.
Go to Belle Fraser, the Salt Lake Tribune.
Hi, Bill. Just
recording in progress.
Sorry, how does your mindset kind of change now that you have this pick, and what was going through your mind when you saw that ball?
Well, it was kind of all over the map because they didn't reveal things. So I thought we had won, but I wasn't quite sure. So when they tuned back in and showed us that we'd won. I mean, that's you just start thinking in a different. It's your mind just totally switches to like who's available that you can get at 4. So it's really exciting times for us. Puts us in a different area of the draft and right up top. And it's going to be a great challenge for us to kind of go back and look at some of the players that are available in that spot and go to work. We've had that ability to pick in the last few years up in that range. So I really do think it's good as a staff when you're always kind of picking in the same range. You get used to what's available and the talent around you. So it's truly exciting, and we're gonna get to work tomorrow and start preparing.
Go to Stephen Wino with the Associated Press.
Bill, you just mentioned sort of this is a game changer for you. Just very big picture, kind of what does this mean in terms of how exciting a summer you guys have ahead of you in terms of this free agency and everything else you guys might be able to do?
Well, I think it is. I mean, you look at the draft and you're like, to get into 4, you have to almost, be. It's a tough year as a franchise to go through that struggle just to be able to get into that range to pick at 4, and we didn't have to do that. We were a pretty good team that chased it down the stretch playing meaningful games and chasing a playoff spot. And we're getting to that point where we're becoming a really good team that's going to have a chance to get into the playoffs. And so not only knowing that we have that in front of us with a really good team and some really good prospects coming, but the fact that we're picking at 4 again and going into free agency, these are exciting times for Utah.
Go to Brogan Houston with Deseret News.
Bill, congratulations. I'm just wondering how the process goes now, shifting gears from, probably anticipating the 14th overall pick, and now, all of a sudden you have this newfound ability to draft maybe a higher talent kind of thing. How does that process work, shifting your attention from one to the next?
Well, this is why you pay your amateur staff, right? Because now you're switching spots and you're having to draft higher. And they've been looking, coming down the stretch, they've been kind of seeing where we're going to place and chasing those type of players. Now it's, in motion, we're going to switch and go into a new world of looking at the top end of the draft and seeing what's going to slide our way at 4. The good news for us is that we've done it before. We've picked in that range in the last few years. So that's going to help us prepare for it. And I think the simple fact that our staff's pretty good at always keeping an eye on what's up there and has done some great work during the year. And now we're going to go dissect it and get down to business tomorrow.
Sam Farnsworth, KSL.
Yeah, hey, Bill, just to give us an idea, any given year in the NHL draft, what is the difference between a player in the skill set that's available at number 4 compared to number 10?
10 or 14 where we were. It doesn't mean you can't pick somebody at 14 or 10 that's as good as that way you can pick at 4. You can. It depends on the strength of the draft and what's coming to you down the way. But right now, where we're picking at 4, there's some good talent there that's is definitely has shown itself, and we're really excited about getting to work and attacking that and see what might come our way. But there's really good players, obviously from 1 to all the way through. You can find players anywhere, so you just need to have a good strategy and a good staff.
Dana Green, ABC.
Congrats on the luck of the draw there. We kind of missed the first part of your comments. Can you just describe the shock that you had to move up 10 spots? That just doesn't happen.
Well, it never does. We sit at these things every year and we're just like, yeah. It's like we were in awe when we were here. We're like, oh my God, like what just happened to us? So it's just an amazing moment. And it really hasn't sunk in, to be honest with you. I think when we get down to doing some work tomorrow and looking at the lists and what we might be able to get, it's going to really get exciting for us. But it normally, you sit in these things and sometimes nobody moves and you go home, unhappy, or you got bumped down a spot and you're going home happy. But we'll never forget this moment. This is truly a great moment in the franchise.
Mike Morial, NHL.com.
Hey, Bill, thanks for doing this. Congrats. I know it might be a little early, but how do you and your staff feel about the top end of this draft and maybe the depth that's available?
Yeah. It's a good draft. I think it's, when you're picking up top, you got a chance to get a real game changer, a top 2-line guy that can be a difference maker on your team. You still have to pick well. If you go back to the 2012 draft, take a look at the top 4 that went off the board, and they all, never worked out for them in the NHL. So you still got to be a savvy staff that gets down to business and ignores all the critics, all the hype, and who's supposed to go and this and that, and really get down to it. So I think our staff's done an amazing job over the years at just kind of ignoring all the noise and getting down to hockey players. And you probably saw that the year that Cooley was picked. There was a lot of hype about a lot of different players, and we just stuck to our guns, and drafted what we thought was the best player in the draft.
Chase Beardsley, Hockey Writers.
Hey, Bill, congrats again on the pick, and hopefully your summer is going well. Originally you were supposed to pick around the 14th range, and around that time, it takes more time usually for players to develop. And now that you're in top 4, it might take less time for that player to develop. Question is, does this change the timeline, in your opinion, of the rebuild? Does it advance it forward at all? Do your plans change at all in the future?
It does. It doesn't really change the rebuild. Our goal this year was to have a strong team that had a chance to get into the playoffs and that could compete, and at the same time go back into the draft with all our picks and swing. And so we have that ability to do that, and that was what we set out to do. And one pick's not going to change our franchise. Now, there's a lot of higher quality talent that's up top, so we'll get a better look at it. Like I said, we'll have to get down to work and really kind of go through it tomorrow. But right now, we'll celebrate a little bit and get down to some work tomorrow.
Jake Hatch, KSL.
Yeah, Bill, philosophically, are you the guy who will go into a draft and look for the best player available regardless of position, or are there certain positions you'll be targeting?
Yeah, we really look at the best player available. We've always done that as a staff. Well, like I said, we kind of ignore all the hype and the noise around it, and all the bloggers and all the great things that they write about players and don't draft this guy. And our staff's really good about just digging into hockey players. And so that's our big thing. I think we've. From the time I've come in, I've tried to hire some of the best scouts in the business and develop a culture and create an organization that's obsessed with scouting. So this is where this is where they'll make their money on picks like this. And so picking at 4 will give us an opportunity to get a real good player that will have some impact in the coming years into this franchise.
Bell Fraser.
Similar to Jake's question, just if there was a position or part of the team that could get some depth from this draft, what are you kind of looking at improving?
Well, we've had a lot of draft picks, Bell, so we've covered a lot of different areas for us. Like I said, it just really comes down for the best player for us. We always keep track of how many D-men we've drafted every year, and obviously as you get down into the later rounds. But when we're picking up top, we're going to take the best player.
Final 2 questions. Tom Callahan, Locked On Utah.
Thank you, Bill. First, congratulations. And also wanted to ask you, I know you just got the shiny number 4 pick. Is there any consideration to maybe putting that pick in play for maybe some future mobility in the draft, free agency, maybe acquiring a player? And do you expect your phone to be ringing now that you're up at number 4?
I do. I think people will try and get into that pick. They'll try and get, they want to acquire it. They'll look at our team and say, listen, this team's had more picks in the last 4 years than any other NHL team. Can we go in there and give them a good player and for exchange for the pick? So I think that's something that obviously, we'll always talk about. We'll never shut that door. That's always been an avenue for us to get players, and we're at the position right now as a team where we're trying to make that next step. So we'll always look at that. That's part of the process. But the amateur guys will be looking at the guy to pick, and they don't want to hear anything about trades. So that'll be an exciting moment for us. But yes, the phone will be ringing.
Last question, Quentin Carney, Hockey News.
Hey, Bill. Just to kind of change gears, I was wondering, do you think Utah Hockey Club is going to try and make a big event of this for the whole Utah community, considering last year it was such a new team and people are still getting to know the team?
Yeah, I think so. I think they get more into the draft every year. So I think because we'll be picking, so high that, it'll cause a little bit of excitement in the community and into our fan base. I think they'll be really exciting to, they'll get into it. They just have to remember that it's not like basketball. The guy doesn't play right away. So I think that's the big difference we've tried to explain to people. It's like they go back to junior and sometimes they're 3 and even more years away from playing. So it takes a little bit longer. But I think last year when we drafted, a lot of the people thought, hey, they're coming in right away to play. And I'm like, no, it takes some time. So, but truly an incredible day for us here. And we're going to have the opportunity to pick a real good player high in the draft and take a big swing here. It's going to be exciting.
There's Bill Armstrong. We'll be talking hockey coming up at 7:30 with Stephen Ellis, who writes for Daily Faceoff and covers the NHL draft and prospects. Also, Alex Miller, Texas A&M beat writer for the Bryan College Station Eagle. A&M and Utah State, game 2 of the season. He's going to join us at 8:30. Stay with us. The headlines are next. What is trending on the way right here on The Zone?